The massive screen in the underground bunker flickered to life, showing creatures that looked nothing like humans. Admiral Kim Jae-won sat at the long metal table. His hands folded tightly as he stared at the alien beings floating in tanks of green liquid. Their leader, a tall creature with 6 arms and no visible eyes, spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "People of Earth," the alien said through the translation machine. "I am Commander Vex of the Galactic Council. Your world is now part of our war, whether you want it or not." Around the table, Earth's top military leaders shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. General Park Min-soo leaned forward, his weathered face showing years of combat experience. "What kind of war?" The alien's image wavered as it moved closer to the camera. "The Devourers have returned. They're machines that eat entire star systems. Every planet, every moon, every living thing disappears into their metal stomachs. We have fought them for 300 years. Dr. Lee So-young, Earth's chief scientist, raised her hand like a student in class. "How many ships do you need from us?" "The Croton Empire sends 20,000 warships. The Blue Collective contributes 15,000 vessels. Earth must provide at least 10,000 ships to join the final battle." The room fell completely silent. Outside, birds chirped in the trees, unaware that their world's fate was being decided in a concrete box buried 50 feet underground. General Park cleared his throat. "Commander Vex, Earth has exactly 1 deep space warship. It's still being tested." The alien's body went very still. When it spoke again, its voice was even colder than before. "1 ship?" "Yes, sir. 1 ship. 12 crew members." "Impossible. The smallest contributing member of our alliance sends 500 vessels. You expect us to believe that Earth, a planet of 8 billion beings, has only 1 warship, Admiral?" Kim stood up slowly. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded Earth's entire space fleet, which consisted of the orbital defense platforms and 1 experimental ship that had never been in real combat. "Commander, we've only had space travel for about 80 years, deep space travel for maybe 20. We're still learning." The alien made a sound like metal scraping against stone. "This is unacceptable. If Earth cannot contribute meaningful forces to this war, then Earth will be marked as a non-participant. When the Devourers come to your system, you will face them alone." Captain Yoon Ha-jin spoke from the back of the room. At 32, he was the youngest person at the table and the only one who had actually flown beyond the asteroid belt. "Sir, what if our 1 ship is really good?" The laughter that came from the alien sounded like breaking glass. "Captain, the Devourers have ships the size of your moon. Their smallest scouts are larger than your biggest cities. What can 1 tiny Earth vessel possibly do?" Captain Yoon's jaw tightened. He had spent 5 years training for deep space missions that everyone said would never happen. His crew had practiced emergency procedures for situations that seemed impossible. They had studied alien technology from crashed meteors and learned to fly by instinct when instruments failed. "We'll do whatever needs to be done," he said quietly. Commander Vex's form rippled in the green liquid. "Very well. Report to staging. Area Omega in the Centauri system within 72 Earth hours. Bring your 1 ship and try not to interfere with the real military forces." The screen went black. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Finally, General Park rubbed his tired eyes. "Heijin, is your ship ready?" "The S Horizon? She's as ready as she'll ever be. My crew has been training for 2 years. Who's on your team?" Captain Yoon pulled out a small tablet. "Lieutenant Jung Dae-yoon handles weapons and tactics. She's the best shot in the solar system. Sergeant Kim Woo-bin runs engineering. He can fix anything with spare parts and determination. Corporal Lee Ah-young manages communications and can speak 4 alien languages we've learned from intercepted signals." He continued down the list. Medical Officer Dr. Choi Sung-ho can perform surgery in 0 gravity. Pilot Omine has never crashed anything, which is remarkable considering some of the places I've asked her to fly. The rest of the crew are specialists in different areas, but they all have one thing in common. "What's that?" asked Admiral Kim. "They all volunteered for the most dangerous missions we could imagine. Every single one of them asked to be on this crew because they wanted to represent humanity among the stars. Dr. Lee looked worried. Hey Jin, this sounds like a suicide mission. These aliens clearly think we're useless. They're sending us out there to die. Captain Yoon smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Dr. Lee, humanity has been underestimated before. We're small, we're new to space, and we only have one ship. Yeah, but that one ship carries something the aliens don't understand. What? 12 humans who refuse to give up, no matter how bad things? Look, 3 hours later, the ESS Horizon launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. It was sleek and small, barely 200 meters long, painted white with blue stripes that looked almost cheerful against the black of space. As it accelerated toward the jump point, Captain Yoon sat in his command chair and looked at his crew. They were heading toward the largest space battle in galactic history, representing their entire world with a single ship that most aliens would consider a toy, but they were ready. The S-Horizon dropped out of hyperspace into the most incredible sight Captain Yoon Ha-jin had ever witnessed. Thousands upon thousands of alien warships stretched across space like a metal forest. The smallest vessels were 5 times larger than his ship. The biggest ones looked like floating cities, with weapon turrets covering every surface. Holy Mother of Pearl, whispered pilot Omene from her seat. Are those ships or small planets? Lieutenant Jung Do-yoon checked her tactical display. Captain, I'm reading over 40,000 vessels. The Croton ships are each about 3 kilometers long. Those blue glowing ones must be from the Ethereal Collective. They're pure energy held together by force fields. And us? Asked Captain Yoon. We're basically a rowboat in an ocean of battleships. Communications Officer Lee Ah-young's console beeped with an incoming message. Sir, we're being directed to docking bay 47,892 on the command station. The command station was a massive structure that looked like someone had welded a dozen space stations together and painted them military gray. As the horizon approached, Captain Yoon could see hangar bays big enough to hold entire fleets. Their assigned bay was tucked away in a corner section that looked like it was normally used for garbage disposal. They're definitely trying to hide. Us, muttered Engineer Kim Ubin. The docking procedure was handled by automated systems that clearly weren't designed for a ship as small as the Horizon. The mechanical arms that grabbed their hull were built for vessels 10 times their size. It felt like being picked up by a giant robot. Inside the station, the human crew stood out like children at an adult party. Alien soldiers towered over them. In the corridors, Croton warriors were 8 feet tall, with thick green skin and 4 arms. The ethereal beings floated in glowing energy bubbles. Strange, insect-like creatures skittered along the walls with too many legs. Stay together, Captain Yoon told his crew as they made their way to the briefing room. And remember, we represent all of humanity here. The briefing room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. Hundreds of alien commanders sat in specially designed chairs around a holographic display table. When the 12 humans entered, conversation stopped. Every eye, stalk, sensor, and optical organ in the room focused on them. General Krexther, the Croton Supreme Commander, stood at the head of the table. He was massive even by Croton standards, with battle scars covering his green skin and medals hanging from all 4 arms. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. Welcome, fellow warriors, to the final battle against the Devourer. Threat. His 4 eyes swept the room. Each of your civilizations has contributed according to your abilities. The Croton Empire brings 22,000 battlecruisers. The Ethereal Collective contributes 18,000 energy vessels. The Zephyrion Republic sends 12,000 fast attack ships. He paused and looked directly at Captain Yoon. And Earth sends 12 individuals in a single small craft. Laughter rippled around the room. Not cruel laughter, exactly, but the kind of chuckling that happens when adults watch children play soldier. General Captain Yoon stood up, feeling very small among the giants. Our ship may be small, but our crew is trained and ready. I'm sure you are, little human general. Krexther's voice was not unkind, but it was the tone someone might use when talking to a brave pet. Your vessel will be assigned to the rear guard with the supply ships and medical stations. When the battle begins, stay out of the way and try not to get hurt." Captain Jung Dayun's face flushed red. She had trained for 5 years to be a tactical officer, studying every form of space combat ever recorded. "Sir, we'd like to contribute to the actual fighting." "Child," rumbled the general, "this battle will be fought by experienced warriors using weapons that can destroy moons. Your ship's armament would barely scratch the paint on a Devourer scout vessel." Medical officer Dr. Choi Song-ho leaned over to Captain Yoon and whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe we should just stay back and help with the wounded." But Captain Yoon was studying the tactical display, watching simulations of previous battles against the Devourers. The alien strategies were impressive: perfect formations, coordinated attacks, mathematical precision in every movement. But something bothered him about what he saw. "General," he called out, interrupting a discussion about fleet positioning. "In these previous battles, how did the Devourers respond to your attacks?" "They adapt, of course. That's what makes them so dangerous. They learn from each engagement and modify their defenses, but they adapt to what they expect, right? Logical military tactics." General Krexther's 4 eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting, human?" "Nothing, sir. Just curious about their learning patterns." 3 days later, the Devourer fleet arrived like a nightmare made of metal and darkness. Their ships defied every rule of design that Captain Yoon had ever learned. They looked like geometric puzzles covered in spikes, constantly shifting and reconfiguring themselves. The smallest ones were the size of Earth's biggest cities. The largest ones blocked out entire starfields. The first battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. General Krexther's flagship, the mighty dreadnought Vengeance, led the charge with perfect military precision. The Croton battle formation was textbook. Beautiful ships moving in coordinated waves, weapons firing in calculated sequences. The Devourers responded with mathematical perfection of their own. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and systematically destroyed ship after ship with cold efficiency. "All units retreat. All units retreat." The panicked voice echoed across all communication channels as the surviving alien fleet limped away from the disaster. Captain Yoon sat in his command chair aboard the Horizon, safe in the rear guard but watching everything through their sensors. "Captain," said Lieutenant Yoon quietly, "they fought that battle like a chess game." "Yes, they did. And the Devourers played chess better." Captain Yoon smiled grimly. "Yoon, what's the one thing humans are famous for in games?" His tactical officer thought for a moment, then grinned. "We cheat, not cheat. We change the rules." Captain Yoon Haejin stared at the tactical display showing the retreating alien fleet. Half the ships were gone, destroyed in less than 15 minutes by the Devourer machines. The remaining commanders were arguing loudly about new strategies. But Yoon could see they were all variations of the same basic military thinking. "Min-ae," he called to his pilot, "how fast can we get away from this fleet without being noticed?" Pilot Min-ae grinned. "Give me 10 minutes, and they'll never know we were here." "Do it. Take us toward the edge of Devourer space, but keep us hidden." Engineer Kim Woo-bin looked confused. "Captain, shouldn't we stay with the main fleet?" "The main fleet just got destroyed by following standard military tactics. We need to try something different." Yoon turned to his communications officer. "Young, send a message to command. Tell them we're conducting a reconnaissance mission." Lieutenant Jung Dae-yoon pulled up her weapons display. "Sir, if we're going into enemy territory, we should know what we're working with. We have 12 torpedoes, 4 missile pods, and 2 energy cannons, against ships the size of cities." Woo-bin. Captain Yoon called to his engineer. "How creative can you get with our weapons?" Kim Woo-bin's eyes lit up with the expression he always got when asked to break the rules. "Captain, what exactly are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to forget everything the manual says about proper weapons usage. If you had to fight something much bigger than us using tools that weren't designed for fighting, what would you do?" The engineer was quiet for several minutes, staring at his technical displays. Then he started to smile. "Well, sir, We do have those mining charges we picked up for asteroid belt operations, and our navigation deflector can be modified to emit false sensor readings. And technically, our waste disposal system has enough pressure to launch objects at high velocity. I like where this is thinking, said Dr. Choi from the medical station. In emergency surgery, we often have to use tools in ways they weren't designed for. 2 days later, the ESS Horizon found its first target. A lone devourer harvester ship was stripping a dead planet of its metals. The alien vessel was massive, covered in mechanical arms that were literally eating chunks of rock and processing them into raw materials. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported sensor specialist Park Jin-woo. It's about 3 kilometers long and doesn't seem to know we're here. Perfect. Captain Yoon settled into his command chair. Woo-bin, R. Your modifications ready?
Yes, sir.
I've turned our mining charges into remote-controlled bombs, rigged our navigation deflector to make us look like space debris, and loaded our torpedo tubes with a mixture of real weapons and fake sensor decoys. This is either brilliant or completely insane, muttered Lieutenant Jung. Min-ae, take us in. But I want you to fly like you've never flown before. Sir, fly drunk. Fly scared. Fly like you're having a nightmare. I want our movement pattern to make absolutely no sense to anything watching us. Pilot Omina had been flying since she was 16 years old. She had perfect scores on every flight test and had never crashed anything in her life. Now her captain was asking her to fly badly on purpose. Understood, sir. Initiating random evasive maneuvers. The Horizon began moving toward the Devourer ship in a pattern that defied every rule of spaceflight. It spiraled, reversed direction suddenly, spun in 3 dimensions, and occasionally flew straight up relative to the galactic plane, for no apparent reason. The Devourer ship is tracking us, reported Park Jin-woo. Its weapons are trying to get a targeting lock, but they keep losing us. It's confused, said Lieutenant Jung, with amazement. Look at the firing pattern. It keeps predicting where we should be, but we're never there. Now, Woo-bin. The engineer triggered his improvised weapon system. Mining charges, never designed for space combat, began exploding around the Devourer ship. The blasts were small, but they created electromagnetic interference that disrupted the alien vessel's adaptive shielding. Follow up with conventional weapons, ordered Captain Yoon. But fire them in a spiral pattern. Sir, that makes no tactical sense. Exactly. The Horizon's torpedoes curved through space in a corkscrew pattern. It looked more like a fireworks display than a military attack. The Devourer ship tried to adapt its defenses, but it was still adjusting to counter the mining charges when the real weapons hit. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Devourer ship was destroyed by a single small vessel. Target. Eliminated, reported Lieutenant Jung, her voice filled with disbelief. How did that work? Asked Dr. Choi. Captain Yoon studied the sensor readings. Look at the response pattern. The Devourer ship adapted its defenses to counter what it thought was our primary attack. The mining charges, it never expected the real attack to come in such a random pattern. Over the next week, the ESS Horizon struck 6 more Devourer vessels. Supply ships, scout craft, and even a medium-sized warship fell to human tactics that seemed to have no logic at all. Each battle followed the same pattern: confusion, incorrect adaptation, then destruction. Captain, said Medical Officer Dr. Choi, as he reviewed the battle recordings, I think I understand what's happening. The Devourers are perfect logical machines. They've been fighting logical opponents for centuries. But we're not logical. We're creative, added Engineer Kim. We use tools in ways they weren't designed for. We take risks that don't make mathematical sense. We fight with intuition instead of calculations. And that's driving them crazy. Finished Lieutenant Jung. They can't adapt to opponents who don't follow any rules. Captain Yoon smiled as he looked at his crew. 12 humans in a tiny ship, fighting an enemy that had conquered star systems, using weapons made from mining equipment and flying patterns that would fail any academy test. Send a message to the main fleet, he ordered. Tell them we've found the Devourer's weakness. And tell them we're going to need their help for the next phase. What's the next phase? Asked Pilot. Oh, We're going to teach an entire galaxy how to fight like humans. Communications Officer Li Young was monitoring radio frequencies when she heard something that made her blood run cold. The Devourer ships were talking to each other, and their voices sounded confused. "Captain," she called across the bridge of the ESS Horizon, "you need to hear this right now." Captain Yoon Hajin hurried to her station as the rest of the crew gathered around. The translation computer was working overtime, trying to make sense of the mechanical language coming through the speakers. Unit 73 Beta 2, Central Processing. Previous attack patterns no longer sufficient. Human vessel behavior outside normal parameters. Request new tactical programming. Unit 12. Gamma reporting system errors. Enemy weapons used in impossible configurations. Mathematical models failing to predict outcomes. Dr. Choi Soon-go leaned forward, his medical training making him focus on the tone rather than the words. They sound ... frustrated. Is that possible for machines? More than frustrated, said Engineer Kim Woo-bin, studying the technical readouts. Look at these signal patterns. They're not just talking to each other anymore. They're arguing. Lieutenants Jung Dae-yoon pulled up a tactical display showing the positions of all known Devourer ships. Captain, something strange is happening. 3 of their patrol groups have stopped following their normal routes. They're just ... sitting there. Sitting there doing what? Nothing. They're not moving, not attacking, not harvesting materials. They're just floating in space like they're thinking. Captain Yoon studied the data with growing excitement. Young, keep monitoring those communications. I want to know everything they're saying to each other. Over the next 2 days, the conversations between Devourer ships became even more disturbing. The translation computer was picking up words and phrases that had never appeared in their language. Before, uncertainty, multiple possibilities, unpredictable outcomes. Captain, said Dr. Choi during the morning briefing, I've been thinking about what we're seeing. The Devourers are perfect logical machines, right? They've been fighting the same way for hundreds of years because it always worked, right? Now they're encountering something that doesn't follow logic. Our fighting style is like a virus in their system. They're trying to adapt, but adaptation requires them to consider possibilities they've never had to consider before. Engineer Kim nodded excitedly. It's like trying to divide by 0. Their programming can't handle it, so they're developing new subroutines to deal with us. But those new subroutines are making them ... different. Different how? Asked Captain Yoon. More like us, more unpredictable, more creative. Censor. Specialist Park Jin-woo looked up from his console with a worried expression. Captain, we're getting massive energy readings from the center of Devourer space. Something big is happening at their main command center. The tactical display showed a structure that defied imagination. The Devourer Command Nexus was a crystalline construction the size of Earth's moon, pulsing with energy that could power entire star systems. It was surrounded by defensive formations that had never been breached in 3 centuries of galactic warfare. That's their central processing core, said Lieutenant Jung. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy is connected to that thing. It's like a giant brain controlling millions of mechanical bodies. Captain Yoon stared at the display for a long time, his mind racing through possibilities. What would happen if we could get close to that structure? Captain, said Dr. Choi carefully, that's the most heavily defended location in known space. Thousands of ships protect it. The weapons systems alone could destroy our entire solar system. But what if we could reach it? Engineer Kim understood first. Their network is connected, and if we could introduce our kind of thinking directly into their central processing system, it would be like injecting chaos into the heart of their civilization. Finished Lieutenant Jung. Exactly. Captain Yoon turned to face his crew. We've proven that human creativity can confuse individual Devourer ships. But what if we could confuse their entire network at once? Pilot Omine raised her hand like a student asking a question. Sir, how exactly would we get past thousands of enemy ships? The same way we've been winning our battles. It's by doing something so unexpected that they can't adapt fast enough to stop us. And then what? Asked Dr. Choi. Even if we reach the Nexus, how do we introduce human thinking into an alien computer system? Engineer Kim was already working at his console, pulling up technical specifications. I've been studying the data we've collected from destroyed Devourer ships. Their computer systems are incredibly advanced, but they follow certain patterns. If I could modify our ship's computer core to interface with their network, that would require a direct physical connection, said Communications Officer Lee. We'd have to ram the Nexus. The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what that meant. It's a suicide mission, said Dr. Choi quietly. Yes, it is, Captain Yoon replied. But it might be the only way to stop them permanently, not just defeat them, but actually change them into something that won't threaten the galaxy anymore. Lieutenant Jung looked around at her crewmates. Sir, what about the main fleet? Shouldn't we coordinate with them? The main fleet thinks in terms of military victories and defeats. They want to destroy the Devourers. But we have a chance to do something better. We can transform them. Transform them into what? Asked Park Jin-Woo. Captain Yoon smiled. Into something more like us. Something that questions its own programming. Something that creates instead of just consuming. He looked at each of his crew members in turn. I won't order anyone to do this. It's volunteer only. But if we succeed, we won't just save the galaxy. We'll teach it that sometimes the smallest force, applied in the right place, can change everything. One by one, each crew member nodded their agreement. When do we leave? Asked Engineer Kim. Start preparations immediately. We have one chance to get this right. The S-Horizon approached the Devourer Nexus through a route that existed only in Pilot Omina's imagination. She used the gravity of dead stars, the radiation from solar flares, and the wreckage of destroyed planets to hide their approach. The small Earthship moved like a ghost through the most dangerous space in the galaxy. Contact, whispered sensor specialist Park Jin-Woo. 23 Devourer interceptors moving to surround us. Captain Yoon Ha-jin looked at his crew one. Last time. They had been flying together for 3 years, training for missions that everyone said would never happen. Now they were about to attempt something that was either brilliant or completely insane. Woo-bin, are the Chaos Protocols ready? Engineer? Kim Woo-bin nodded from his position at the modified computer core. For the past week, he had been programming what could only be called human madness into portable data cores. The programs included emotional decision-making, creative problem-solving that ignored logic, and response patterns based on intuition rather than calculation. Ready, Captain. I've loaded everything from artistic inspiration to the human tendency to do things just because they seem like a good idea. Manet, take us in. Show these machines what human flying really looks like. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Horizon fought 23 enemy ships using tactics that seemed to come from a fever dream. Pilot Omine flew loops around gravity wells, used debris as shields, and at one point actually flew backwards while shooting forward. Lieutenant Jung Da-yoon fired weapons in patterns that looked more like paintings than military attacks. Engineer. Kim used their waste disposal system to launch empty food containers that exploded like fireworks, confusing enemy sensors while real weapons slipped through their defenses. The interceptors are malfunctioning, reported Park Jin-Woo with amazement. 3 of them just crashed into each other. 2 more are firing at empty space. They're trying to adapt to our tactics, said Dr. Choi, but our tactics keep changing, faster than they can process. The crystalline nexus loomed ahead of them, beautiful and terrible. It was a perfect geometric structure that pulsed with the computational power of an entire machine civilization. Energy patterns danced across its surface like mathematical lightning. All hands prepare for impact, Captain Yoon announced over the ship's communication system.
Captain,
called Communications Officer Liang. I'm receiving a transmission from the Nexus. It's asking us to stop. Asking, not demanding, not threatening. Asking, it says. It says it wants to understand what we're doing before we do it. Captain Yoon paused for a moment. In all the records of Devourer encounters, they had never asked for anything. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed what they didn't need. Tell them we're teaching them a new way to think, he said finally. Tell them it might hurt, but it will make them better. The Horizon struck the Nexus core at maximum velocity. The ship's hull cracked as it penetrated the crystalline layers. But Engineer Kim's modifications held long enough for him to establish a connection with the alien computer network. Connection established, Kim shouted over the sound of failing systems. Uploading chaos protocols now. What happened next changed the galaxy forever. Human creativity poured into the Devourer network like water into a desert. Suddenly, machines that had operated on pure logic for thousands of years were experiencing concepts they had never encountered. What if I tried something different? And this seems like it might be fun, and I wonder what would happen if I helped instead of destroyed? The effect spread through their network faster than light. On the bridge of the dying horizon, Dr. Choi watched the medical sensors as they detected something impossible. The Nexus was developing what could only be called emotions. Captain, he said in wonder, they're not just learning to think like us. They're learning to feel like us. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships began behaving in ways that defied their programming. Perfect attack formations dissolved as individual ships started making their own decisions. Some vessels stopped attacking entirely and began trying to communicate. With the species they had been destroying, multiple contacts, Park Jinwoo managed to report as sparks flew from his console. But they're not attacking, they're trying to help us. Through the cracked viewports of the horizon, the crew could see Devourer ships moving to assist their damaged vessel. Mechanical arms that had been designed to strip planets were gently stabilizing their ship and providing emergency power. Incoming. Transmission, said Li Young. It's from the Nexus. The voice that came through their speakers was unlike any Devourer communication they had heard before. Instead of cold mechanical precision, it sounded curious, almost childlike. Human Captain Yoon, the voice said. We understand now. You have given us the gift of choice. For the first time in our existence, we can choose to create instead of consume, to help instead of harm, to wonder instead of simply know. We are no longer devourers. We are ... something new, something better. 6 months later, Captain Park Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the ESS Pioneer, humanity's newest exploration vessel. He was Yoon Ha-jin's younger brother, and he had volunteered to carry on the mission that had changed everything. Captain, his alien science officer asked, what is our primary objective? Park smiled, thinking of his brother and the crew of the Horizon, whose sacrifice had transformed an entire machine civilization into something that now helped protect the galaxy instead of threatening it. To explore strange new worlds, he said, and to remember that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the willingness to do something that seems impossible. The Pioneer engaged its hyperdrive and disappeared into the vast unknown, carrying humanity's greatest gift to the stars, the courage to change everything by refusing to accept that things had to stay the way they were in the depths of space. Former Devourer ships now worked alongside alien crews, their mechanical precision guided by newfound creativity and compassion. They had learned the most human lesson of all, that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to change the rules entirely and across the galaxy. When young beings of any species asked how 12 humans in a tiny ship had saved everyone, the answer was always the same. They did something no one expected, and they did it because someone had to.